On November 24, 1971, aboard Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a man secured a parachute and $200,000 in cash worth about $1.4 million today. And then jumped from the aircraft over Oregon, never to be seen again. To this day, his identity, his motive, and even whether he survived remain completely unknown. Despite 45 years of investigation, the FBI eventually closed the case as the only unsolved airplane hijacking in U.S. history. November 24, 1971. The day before Thanksgiving, a calm businessman wearing a black suit and dark sunglasses boards Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle. He finds his seat, orders a bourbon and soda, and blends into the quiet cabin. But a few minutes later, he hands the flight attendant a note. She almost ignores it, until he whispers, "Miss, you'd better read that. I have a bomb." That moment becomes the beginning of the most enduring mystery in American aviation history. This is the story of the man the world now calls D.B. Cooper. He wrote the name Dan Cooper on the manifest. Media confusion later turned it into D.B. Cooper, and the name stuck forever. Witnesses describe him as calm, polite, and strangely composed. A man who looked more like a businessman than a criminal. When he slightly opened his briefcase, red cylinders and wires were visible inside. His demands were simple and surprisingly precise. $200,000 in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, a refueled Boeing 727, and instructions to fly low and slow toward Mexico. After landing in Seattle, he released all 36 passengers without harming anyone. Only the crew remained. Once the money and parachutes were delivered, the aircraft took off again. Rain hammered the windows, winds struck the fuselage. The night sky over Washington and Oregon was pitch black. About 30 minutes after takeoff, a warning light blinked in the cockpit. The rear air stair had been lowered. The pilots felt a sudden upward jolt, as if a weight had dropped away. Between 8:13 and 8:15 p.m., D.B. Cooper stepped into the freezing darkness and vanished. No one ever saw him again. The FBI launched one of the most extensive search operations in U.S. history. But they found nothing. No body, no parachute, no equipment, no clear fingerprints, not even a discarded strap or piece of clothing. Experts insisted the chance of survival was extremely low. But the total absence of evidence fueled a different belief. What if he actually survived? 9 years later, in 1980, an 8-year-old boy discovered $5,800 in crumbling $20 bills on a sandy riverbank near the Columbia River. The serial numbers matched the ransom money, but the location didn't match the river's flow. The bills showed sand damage, not water decay, and the rubber bands around the bills were partially intact. Something impossible if the bundles had been underwater for years. The find only deepened the mystery. Did Cooper bury the money himself? Did someone else move it? Or was it planted to mislead investigators? Over 1,000 suspects were investigated, but none were ever confirmed. Richard McCoy, a former soldier who hijacked another 727 in similar fashion, had an alibi. Kenneth Christensen, a Northwest Airlines employee, had no supporting DNA evidence. Others offered false confessions or unreliable claims. Even today, no fingerprints, no DNA, and no money trail conclusively point to anyone. Cooper remains a ghost. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially closed the active investigation. But the mystery remains untouched. No confirmed identity, no confirmed fate, no final answer. D.B. Cooper jumped into a storm. And into legend. If he survived, he pulled off the only successful skyjacking escape in history. If he didn't, he still left behind one of the greatest unsolved mysteries ever recorded. And so, the question lingers. Who was D.B. Cooper? A desperate criminal? A daring mastermind? Or simply a man who decided to vanish forever? The truth remains somewhere in the night sky, where he took that final step.